So, welcome everybody. I'd like to welcome everyone on behalf of all Safeguarding Adult Boards. As we've had a wonderful turnout today, I'd like to request that everyone kindly turns off their cameras and microphones for the whole session, apart from those presenting. We'd welcome any questions for the speakers.
Can't see anything now.
Sorry, I can't tell. Can you hear me, everybody? Well, obviously there's a few technical challenges at the moment. Fabulous. I love all the thumbs up. So I'll just reiterate what I was just saying. As we have a wonderful turnout today, I'd like to request everyone kindly turns off their cameras and microphones for the whole session. We'd certainly welcome any questions for the speakers. If you'd use the chat function to do this, as there's far too many delegates for putting hands up or coming off mutes. Anything you do write in the chat will be visible to everybody. There is an option in Teams to use live captions and subtitles, and these can be switched on by each individual user and only you be able to see the captions. They don't appear for the whole group. Just to let everyone know, this session will be recorded and a link to the recordings will be made available in the next few weeks through the Bristol SAAW website, and your local SAAW will also have the link to send out. There'll also be an evaluation form at the end of the session, which will be a link in the chat during the last 5 minutes. If you kindly complete this before leaving, it'd be much appreciated. It should only take you about 5 minutes. We'll be using Mentimeter as part of the way through the webinar. So again, we'll put the link in the chat so you can be prepared for this. I'd like to start the proceedings by playing a short video of Philip, a brave young man with lived experience who tells his story of his life and the steps he took to stop abuse to safeguard himself. Okay, something has technically gone wrong there. Let me just try again. We seem to have lost our PowerPoint. And over to Claire. Thank you.
Thanks, Natalie. And you'll all be pleased to hear that Philip had met a lovely young lady whom he later married, and they had a happy and fulfilling life. So my name's Claire Gilbert, and I work for the South West Advocacy Network, and I'm here with my colleague, Katie Buckle.
Hi there. I'm the Somerset Service Manager.
She is. And we're going to talk to you today about independent advocacy within the safeguarding process. So the first things I just wanted to share with everybody is a few key points about independent advocacy. And that is, independent advocates are truly independent from all other services. We don't work for the NHS or the social services, for example. Advocacy focuses on the empowerment of a person to be a meaningful part of their safeguarding process. Advocacy and advocates will never make decisions for people. We don't provide advice, and we would never replace the person in the process. We're there to empower the person to be part of their own process. And access to independent advocacy under safeguarding is a legal right for the vast majority of people. And so to give you a good idea about what independent advocacy looks like in the safeguarding process, Katie's going to share a case study with you now, a very brief one about some work that she'd done.
Hi, so I supported a lady called Lydia, who was 90 years old and was living in her own home with a recent diagnosis of dementia. Concerns had been raised about her home environment. It was very unsanitary. There was an infestation of mice. She was a hoarder, and the home was very cluttered. And there were also concerns about her physical presentation. So I received the referral, and the first thing I needed to do was go out and talk to her about the safeguarding process and to make sure that she was able to participate as much as possible in the plans that were being made to keep her safe. And first of all, I listened to what her views and wishes were. And she told me that she'd lived in her house all her life, from she was born there, and looked after her parents in their old age. And she was very, very attached to her home and was very scared that maybe people were going to suggest that she should leave her home. She was also a keen traveller and had gone across the world and come home with various items which all meant something to her in terms of her travel, which also then had cluttered her home. And she needed to know that those things would be respected. So I spoke to her about the fact that people were concerned about the infestation of mice. And after sort of revisiting that, she agreed to have pest control come in and sort that out for her. And then when I spoke to her about the deep clean that was suggested for her home, she was really concerned that maybe she might have to move out and people would throw things away that were important to her. And one of the suggestions been that she moved into temporary respite into a care home, and that was really her worst nightmare because she was terrified she might not get back to the home that she loved and her possessions that were so important to her. And by sort of discussing that with her and bringing that to the attention of her social worker, we all worked together to support her to accept a micro provider coming in and helping with the cleaning and the deep things carried out while she just went out for the day. And by working together, we were able to come to a solution that worked for Lydia and enabled her to carry on living safely in her home environment. And I've got no doubt that if she hadn't had that support and had somebody listening, what were the real fears that was stopping her and being barriers to her having the safety plan put into place, then things, might not have carried on in that way for her.
Thanks, Katie. So just to recap that independent advocacy role there that Katie's just described, we're there to help people to communicate their views, wishes and feelings, as you've heard. And that would be throughout the entire safeguarding process from start to finish. We help people understand the safety plans and the processes of the actual safeguarding as it moves along. We help people understand their rights and how to make challenges, such as Lydia putting a point across that she didn't want to go to the care home. And we ensure that they're supported, any person we support, that they can make their own decisions and they can say and think about their own desired outcomes, which we can then share with the professionals. So if anybody has any questions at the end, we're happy to answer. But right now, I'm going to hand over and just tell you that as well as independent advocacy, many friends and families advocate and they provide the support to allow people to express their wishes and live a life in their own chosen way. Peter, whose brother has a learning disability, talks to us about his experience and the role that he has taken. Thank you.
chatting on it, so what a waste of time that was.
I'm hoping that most of you could hear that. I did have a message saying that some actually didn't get any volume. We will, as Sarah said earlier, put all these, make them available for you to actually watch at another time with the presentation as well. So apologies if you're having problems with it. We will certainly make sure they're available to you. So I've put the link in the chat to Menti and also the QR code. So what we'll do is we'll go to Menti, the code being 34457744, and you should be able to access the interactive questions, which I will share on my screen now. So you should all be able to see the Menti, or you should be actually on Menti yourself and see these questions. Oh, people have started answering already. Wonderful. So what forum does your organisation have to discuss adults at risk? And there's different types of meetings people have depending on the area and also what they call them. And obviously we should be getting quite a few here. So if you kindly put your what meetings you have, it will come up in a word cloud. Wonderful. We've got supervision, we've got multidisciplinary teams. Let's get rid of that one a moment. So vulnerable women's meeting. So I know in Somerset we have Marek as well. We also, in some areas, they have MASH. Oh, yep, there we are. We have Marek, MDT meetings, risk panel meetings. Fabulous. So if we move on to our next question, and this will be very interesting because it's something we see that comes up in SAAWs quite often. Here we go. How many have arranged a multi-agency meeting to share information about somebody at risk? It's something we all should be thinking about and taking ownership if we feel there is a need for it. It's quite daunting sometimes, especially we don't feel that we should be the lead agency, but it's something that we will discuss coming up now. Great to see that 11 have actually arranged a multi-agency meeting in the last 11 months and 8 within the last 6. Just food for thought, really, thinking, okay, how can we help going forwards? And a thought, how can we use information to prevent the need for safeguarding intervention in the future? In an ideal world, preventative measures would always be better than reactive, but we do live in a world where resource is quite strained sometimes. Yep, early intervention, wonderful, and education. Yep, sharing case studies and learning, so that'd be from SAAWs and also DHRs and even leader reviews as well. Professional curiosity, which we might just touch on a little later on. And you know, training and induction. Induction when we have a high throughput of new staff, very, very important indeed. Brilliant. Thank you very much for your input. I'm going to go back to the actual presentation now. And if all goes well, we should rejoin at this same slide. Okay, we're there. So we always need to consider the 7 golden rules of information sharing. GDPR. I know GDPR is something that we've probably grown about, data protection also, and human rights law are not the barriers to information sharing, but provide a framework to ensure that personal information about individuals is shared appropriately. Be open and honest with the individual and or their family where appropriate from the outset why, what, how and with whom information will or could be shared, and seek their agreement unless it's unsafe or inappropriate to do so. I'd like to add that we should never promise to keep information a secret in relation to disclosures. The importance of being open about what you will do with people's info is the key to maintaining relationships and building trust. Seek advice from other practitioners or information governance lead. If you're in any doubt about sharing the information concerned without disclosing the identity of the individual where possible. Where possible, share information with consent, and we always try and do this. And where possible, respect the wishes of those who do not consent to have their information shared. Under GDPR and data protection, you may share information without consent. In your judgment, there is a lawful basis to do so, such as where safety may be at risk. Consider safety and well-being. Base information sharing decisions on considerations of the safety and well-being of the individual and others who may be affected by their actions. We're always mindful that any actions are necessary, proportionate, relevant, adequate, accurate, timely, and secure. Ensure that the information you share is necessary for the purpose for which you are sharing it. It's only shared with those individuals who need to have access to it and is accurate and up to date and shared in a timely fashion. And finally, keep a record of your decision and the reasons for it, whether it's to share the information or not. If you decide to share, then record what you've shared and with whom and for what purpose. So, looking at this in practice from a safeguarding team member perspective, we have a case. Mr. D is a 53-year-old man who attends the emergency department on a regular basis due to accidents and injuries caused by alcohol intoxication. And I imagine many of you can actually relate to this. He's had numerous referrals to the substance misuse team from his family and also the housing manager due to falls, being at risk of harm due to being under the influence of alcohol, and the risk of assault from being a danger to himself. Plus, he's been the victim of break-ins to his flat and robbery. In this case, Mr. D was not being abused by an outsider, but his actions were putting him at risk of harm. Joint visits were arranged between the alcohol team and his family, housing manager, and neighbours with social services. Mr. D was yet again admitted to hospital following an injury from a fall. He undertook a medication regime in hospital to alleviate alcohol withdrawal symptoms and remained alcohol-free. A joint visit was arranged to his flat following his discharge from hospital between the social work and alcohol team, and a multi-agency meeting was held between housing, social services, family, and again the alcohol team agreed to liaise in the future if support was required. The risk factors identified prior to admission were greatly reduced, and if any of the agencies identified any elements of the self-neglect, including alcohol abuse, they were empowered to call a multi-agency meeting to prevent a safeguarding. We would ideally like to put these measures in place to prevent the need for reactive safeguarding interventions, but realistically, these multi-agency reactive measures will prevent the need for future safeguarding. So, the false perceptions about needing evidence or consent to share information. Some frontline staff and managers can be overcautious about sharing personal information, particularly if it's against the wishes of the individual concerned. They may also be mistaken about needing hard evidence or consent to share information. The risk safeguarding adults sharing information to the sharing information is often perceived as higher than it actually is. It's important that staff consider the risks of not sharing the information when making the decisions. I'm sure that most SAAWs quite often find that in SAAWs state that information has not been shared or communicated. And this highlights that it's our responsibility to ensure that information sharing is at the forefront of our minds and practice when thinking about safeguarding. I'll now hand over to Louise, who will look at curiosity.
Thank you, Natalie. I'm just taking control of the slide, so just bear with me. So why have we included a brief section on professional curiosity? And it's because it's something we can use in our lives, our working lives, in voluntary work, and it enriches conversations in relationships. And the lack of it has been a recurrent theme in safeguarding adult reviews. So I was very relieved that somebody put in the Mentimeter about using curiosity in a preventative way. And this section of the webinar is aimed at everybody, regardless of knowledge, experience or qualifications. And we wanted to offer up some practical tips for having a professionally curious conversation. It can be difficult for anybody to start a conversation that might be uncomfortable. And I'm sure we can all think of our time, perhaps in our family lives, when we've wanted to talk about something and it's been a bit anxiety provoking. We might worry about upsetting the person. We might worry about making them angry. We might worry about what to do with the information when we have it. And that can lead us to avoid starting the conversation at all. And that will hinder curiosity. So our lack of confidence can be a barrier to curious conversations. So we're hoping you might feel a little more confident about having the conversation after today. The word professionals in brackets, because curiosity is a basic component of our natures. The dictionary defines curiosity as an eager wish to learn or know about something. Or we could say curiosity is the gap between what you do know and what you want to know. And let's look at children and animals. They explore, they ask naive questions, they use all of their senses. They're naturally curious. It's how they learn about the world and people around them and how they develop in their knowledge, skills and emotions. So to continue developing through our personal and professional lives, we need to carry on being curious. And when we are curious, we're seeking information to build a picture, a landscape, and to understand, and sometimes to make judgments about risk and decisions about what to do next. And without information, we can't understand. And if we don't understand, we can't make rounded decisions. For example, when we talk about assessing a person's capacity to make a decision, the first thing we have to do is make sure they have the relevant information, because how can any of us make a decision when we don't know the information? So we all need to be curious in our own lives and when our professional lives touch other people. So part of my role and your role in safeguarding is being curious. So how can it help? If we don't know something and we don't ask about it and observe, we can believe just what we're told or just what we see. We can all look at the same view or landscape, and although we're all looking at the same place, we're all going to see something different. And it's only by exploring that we truly get to know more about the landscape. So we're leading up to Christmas now. So let's go back to children. We tell them from an early age about Father Christmas and they believe us. We reinforce their beliefs by decorating the environment, putting stockings up, putting mince pies out for reindeer, and we might sneak about the house with presents, all with the aim of reinforcing the belief that Father Christmas is real. But what happens? They're curious, and they do this when there is a seed of doubt. And what do? They start asking questions, they observe things, they take note of discrepancies between what they believe, what they're told and what they see. And we really need to harness this natural process. If you have a seed of doubt, be curious. When we're given a set of information, we need to imagine there is more information that we don't know about, or that the first information we're not given is not that we're given is not complete. And we must guard against assuming that we know everything there is to know about a situation. That doesn't allow for curiosity to flourish and seek out what we don't know. And in the safeguarding arena, we need to avoid taking things at face value. But we do need to come from a position of humility and not knowing. We need to stop assuming we're right and only using the evidence that supports our view, because that stops curiosity in its tracks. And that's especially true when we're stepping into the lives of others. How else do we learn about something or a person or their circumstances or their decisions? So we all like to be in a relationship where we feel we're equals. Sadly, in our professional lives, there is a power imbalance and people can feel inhibited by this. But we can try and approach the situation as a novice and respect the person we're working with as the expert. We all want to be seen, we all want to be heard, and we all want honesty. And we don't like to be second guessing what somebody thinks about us, about our lifestyle, about our decisions. And we also all like to tell our own stories. So this helps to start the relationship from a position of respect. And when you've found the relationship, you can start getting the information for writing the first draft of the story. Then you can start checking, adding details to get the whole story. And I want to introduce you to 2 ways of doing this. One is called TEDS, tell me, explain to me, describe to me, show me. And this will give you the outline of the story. The other is the 5 Ws, which is complementary to TEDS and helps to explore the details. And that will help you develop the story. And we also know some of us don't like silences in conversations, some more than others, but silences can be valued and we need to learn to be comfortable with them. So let's say you're in a situation or been given some information that bothers you, but you can't quite put your finger on why. You could start with, I've noticed, or I saw, or I heard, or you mentioned, and it's been bothering me. Can you tell me a little bit more about what's been happening? Or could you explain to me what that's like? Can you try and describe to me what happened? Would you show me so I can really understand? And while you're doing this, use all of your senses like a child. When something doesn't make sense to you, ask more, explore more, like the child who's learning about the world. Explore the discrepancies, be comfortable with repetition. What happened? What happened next? And then what happened? Who did that? When did they do that? And why do you think that happened? There are a few things we must guard against. Bias. Despite our best efforts, we all hold personal views and make judgments, and we must guard against allowing these to influence us in our work. Good quality, reflective supervision can help us develop our self-awareness of any bias we hold. Assumptions, we can make assumptions that are wrong, and so look for the evidence. Dealing with things in isolation, look for information widely to develop a really rich story. And we need to guard against the rule of optimism, thinking everything is okay because that's what we've been told. Sometimes we have to think the unthinkable. And you might say to yourself, but what if I'm wrong? And I would urge you to ask yourself instead, what if I'm right? Are there discrepancies in what somebody is saying, the way they're saying it, their body language? It might not be appropriate to challenge this, but you can still record it as a subjective observation. And finally, something called professional deference, so accepting a superior or expert's judgment over your own. We're all duty bound to be courageous in our work, and if something doesn't seem right, then to challenge it. So thank you for listening to that. I'm going to hand over to Helwyn now, who's going to talk to you a little bit about the primary care perspective.
Hi, my name's Helwyn Thornton-Grimes. I'm a complex care nurse and trainee advanced clinical practitioner that works with Tone Valley Primary Care Network. I am going to try and take over these slides. I'm also going to apologise in advance that I have rehearsed this, but I do have dyslexia, which goes to pot when I'm trying to read my own notes. So I do apologise for any confusion. I'm hoping, have I taken control? Hopefully, yes, I have. So, welcome. And
so, Helwyn, I've still got control. You need to take control, otherwise I can change the slides for you.
Hang on, I'll just. Is that working?
Yep, you've got it.
Lovely, brilliant. So, please spend first of all, please spend 10 seconds looking at this slide. And I would be really grateful if you could complete the Mentimeter, looking at what is the connection between these two images. And it's just for fun, so please do have a go and we'll come back to it at the end.
Can I just ask, say the Mentimeter has changed. It's the same one as you were using. So I will move this on so you can see the slide on Mentimeter now. So it is the same code as you were using. And it's available to you now.
Whilst you're doing that, I shall carry on. So that feeling. So a little like Sid here, he was looking like he may have done or said the wrong thing. I think it was eating somebody else's dandelion. We all know how it feels, or how he felt if we've eaten the last chocolate from the chocolate box. We also can likely relate to feeling like Sid is in this picture, feeling fleeing in terror at the thought of professional challenge. And professional challenge can feel uncomfortable and unsafe. So in our team, we experience that feeling of worrying and feeling like we've done the wrong thing or said the wrong thing. Someone didn't like what we had to say as it was challenging others' professionals' opinions. So at times our staff felt that professional challenge made them feel so anxious they felt physically that feeling of that threat response and felt they were hanging out on a limb on their own and vulnerable. And this resulted in fear to future professional challenge. So we identified 3 problems. So firstly, we have very complex patients in our community MDT that we support, and we wanted advice and supervision in practice, but we didn't have that. We needed to build bridges with teams across the neighbourhood, and this included adult social care. And professional challenge felt uncomfortable and unsafe and left staff feeling anxious. So building bridges. So it's all our responsibility to collectively make change and improve safety for clients and have a safe wellbeing culture with our professionals. I'm a strong believer in kindness. We will all have a bad day, we will all need support, and none of us are perfect. But if we can put kindness into everything we do, then we can build bridges. So I do love a bit of Winnie the Pooh. So heeding the words of Winnie the Pooh, you can't stay in your corner of the forest waiting for others to come to you. You have to go to them sometimes. So we outreach to specialist leads at every opportunity on neighbourhood meetings, study days, listening events. We built professional relationships and learnt about each other's roles. And in doing so, we built connections and grew our professional contacts. And I think the important thing around this was it wasn't always necessarily that the person you met could be quite unexpected and have really positive impacts. Again, listening to Winnie the Pooh, if the person you are talking to doesn't appear to be listening, be patient. It may simply be that he has a small piece of fluff in his ear. Now, we're all busy and we can all be head down doing our things or not hear people properly. So we didn't give up and we were kind about that. And we just kept asking for the support we needed and working with safeguarding leads. And eventually we set up an invaluable supervision and learning sessions with a lead and grew those contacts and those rapports. And finally, Winnie the Pooh, rivers know this. There is no hurry. We shall get there someday. So we nurtured our primary care network, multidisciplinary teams, and built a safe and learning environment and a trusted space, and continue to do this with changing staff. And we've been doing this now for about 3 years. So it's that constant cycle of just moving forward with each other and building that. We continue to reach out and work with teams, inviting them to spend time with our team. So any changes in team dynamics, we'll always invite people to come and meet us or new colleagues to continue building those rapports. We've shared any learning that we've got with our local PCN teams to spread learning and spread success and share that amongst us all. And every day we try to keep making sure that we are kind, professional, honest. We challenge kindly and professionally, building teams where we feel safe to deliver best care. We remember that it's not just always somebody else's role. We need to take ownership and shared responsibility to learn about each other's roles and pressures, to have empathy, to reach out to specialists and leads to set up supervision and support you and your needs, and in return share your skills and support others, and finally share what works. And these environments, you can safely have professional challenge where we use all of our skills and knowledge to best deliver care. It is healthy to challenge each other to better understand a problem and to move towards a collective answer. And the outcome is that we have a braver professionals because they feel valued, they feel safe, and better patient outcomes, because everybody's working together, which brings a much better skill set to the table. And then finally, the answer. So the answer is we've got a little happy Sid and his little family here, is basically bringing together teams. We will be stronger if we can capture our differences and our strengths. And I think that's a really important thing to do together. So that concludes my presentation, which I hope cheered you up with some jolly little pictures. What we would just, if you've got any questions or anything from the presentation, the webinar, please do pop them into the chat, and please complete the evaluation form, which is also in the chat. And that's it for me. Thank you very much.
I'd just like to say thank you very much, everybody, for today. We will be putting this on the Bristol SAAW website and also the local websites, so including the videos. So if there's any technical difficulties, we do apologise, but you will be able to access them then. What we also have on the slide is the reference documents for all the different SAAWs within the region for what we've covered, and also the advocacy contacts for the different regions as well. So I would just like to say thank you very much for your time today, and remind you we have webinars throughout the week from the different SAAWs at the same time at 12 o'clock every day this week. So we hope that you can join us for those as well. So we'll be hanging around for the next few minutes, but we've got 10 minutes. So if anybody does have any questions, please do put them in the chat and we'd be happy to discuss them. And thank you very much for your kind comments. It's very much appreciated.